Discover 10 incredible, heartwarming facts about Cleopatra that will change your view forever. Jamie had never pictured himself standing at the edge of Maplewood, staring at the old library. The factory, once a steady hum of life, had fallen silent, swallowed whole by the winds of change. It was hard to believe that just last week he had a job, a purpose. Now, at 35, the weight of disappointment settled on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. He could feel the townsfolk's gaze assessing him, layered with pity and confusion, as if his layoff was a reflection of their failed dreams too. That he stepped inside, greeted by the smell of dust and forgotten stories. Rows of books stood sentinel, waiting for someone like him to resurrect their tales. Lost in a world of forgotten time, Jamie moved between the shelves, hoping something would speak to him. That's when his eyes landed on a framed book about Cleopatra. The title shimmered with a playful promise: a Queen's story could reveal more than just ancient history. As he flipped through the pages, the words seemed to leap out, vivid and alive. Cleopatra, fierce and ambitious, transformed adversity into opportunity. She was a survivor, just like Jamie, clutching at hope in dark times. Each fact unfurled new layers of courage, and Jamie felt a flicker of light igniting in his chest. This Queen's grit threaded through his heart, a connection through time that made his own struggles feel profoundly relatable. Here was a woman who had faced insurmountable odds, and instead of bowing down, she rose up. He couldn't ignore it. The thought of sharing these truths at the upcoming town hall meeting grew stronger. It felt right. He could convince others that inspiration could stem from history. But just as excitement bloomed, reality crashed in. "What are you doing with this nonsense?" Tim snapped when Jamie mentioned his plan. His older brother, still grinding away at the factory, lived and breathed practicality, his scorn sharp and biting. "We need jobs, not feel-good stories." Their home felt more like a battleground than a sanctuary. Jamie's dreams clashed hard against Tim's cold logic. While townsfolk scurried around, grappling with their futures, Jamie found it difficult to convey how the lessons of an ancient queen could ripple into their lives. They had enough on their backs without hearing about a rich, dead ruler. As the day of the meeting approached, a mixture of dread and hope twisted in Jamie's gut. He envisioned the crowd, their skepticism wrapped around him like a vice. But as he prepared, the storm outside began to brew, a fierce tempest reflecting his inner turmoil. It swept through Maplewood with howling winds, rattling the windows. Storms had always brought the community together. They'd have to unite to face this. An idea ignited in Jamie's mind, a parallel. Like Cleopatra weathering the storm of her time, they too had to stand resilient against the chaos. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As thunder boomed and raindrops danced violently against the roof, Jamie felt the tension rise in the church. He stood, heart racing, ready to deliver his thoughts on a queen who could inspire a town if only he could just bridge the gap between them. But with Tim looming at the back, arms crossed and doubt in his eyes, Jamie realized that not just a storm raged outside, but inside himself too. Would they accept his message? Would they understand that their pain mirrored Cleopatra's grit? The lightning flashed, illuminating the uncertainty cloaked between brothers, their liberation hanging as low as the storm clouds threatening to drown them out. Jamie took a deep breath, letting the moment stretch and fill the church. The flickering lights cast shadows that danced across the faces of the townsfolk, their eyes a mix of curiosity and skepticism. He clenched the book in his hands, feeling its weight both as a physical object and as a vessel of hope. Cleopatra wasn't just a ruler, he began, finding his voice amid the crackle of thunder. She was a woman who fought fiercely for her kingdom, her family, and her identity. As he spoke, he watched their expressions shift, some softened, others still guarded. He pressed on, eager to connect with them. Imagine facing betrayal and loss, but still rising up again and again. Like us, Cleopatra faced overwhelming odds. Yet she found strength in her vulnerability. The murmurs in the crowd grew louder, some nodding while others whispered to one another. Jamie could feel the electric tension in the air, the storm outside now a distant memory in the shadow of their collective struggles. Each fact I've read about her, he continued, punctuating each word with emotion, shows us that adversity can lead to growth. To make a difference, we have to embrace our hardships, just like she did. You might not believe it, but I think we're at a point in Maplewood where we, too, need to rise. He could see Tim's frown deepening from the back of the room. Yet, despite an innate urge to retreat under his brother's glare, Jamie felt the tide of his own insecurities begin to shift. Cleopatra united people, he asserted, his voice rising above the thunder of doubt. If she could stand tall against empires, we can certainly stand together against our struggles. Suddenly, an unexpected, searing bolt of lightning split the sky, illuminating everything for just a fleeting moment. It was as if nature itself was responding to Jamie's call. Gasps rippled through the church, and Jamie seized the moment. We can weave our own story in Maplewood, but it starts here and now. Who's with me? A few hands raised tentatively, side glances exchanged. Jamie's heart soared, but his glimmer of hope was met with silence as Tim stepped forward. This isn't some fairy tale, Jamie. We need more than inspiration, we need jobs. His voice sliced through the air, laced with the weight of lingering doubt. The crowd shifted, uncertainty creeping back in. Jamie felt the ground beneath him shift too, as if the very foundation upon which he stood was quaking. But listen, he implored, his voice shaking, every change starts with a story. If we connect together we can ignite something in this town. We can become a force. Let Cleopatra show us how to turn adversity into opportunity. More eyes began to glimmer with understanding as Jamie's fervor washed over them like a rain-soaked dawn. He noticed an elderly woman at the front, her face worn yet wise, nodding slowly, the corners of her mouth lifting into a reluctant smile. That small beacon of hope urged him on. But just as optimism filled his heart, the door to the church swung open violently, chill winds gusting inside like a dark omen. Jamie's breath caught in his throat. A stranger stood at the threshold, panting and wide-eyed. There's been an accident at the factory, the stranger gasped, barely holding himself together. Sudden fear swept through the room, biting through the edifice of his burgeoning bond with the audience. Jamie's dream of change felt suspended in air, its wings clipped by the harsh reality at their doorstep. What would this crisis mean for Maplewood? Would it snuff out the hope Jamie had kindled moments before? Could a mere story hold this community together in the face of disaster? He had to find the answers before it was too late. The room fell silent, a void swallowing the flickering light and vibrant energy Jamie had tried so hard to ignite. The stranger's words hung in the air like a heavy fog, thick with fear and uncertainty. What happened at the factory? Someone finally managed to ask, their voice barely breaking through the tension. The stranger stepped further into the church, his shoulders slumping as if the weight of the news was dragging him down. An explosion. There are injured people, many of them. His voice grew ragged, and he looked around at the faces before him, some wide-eyed, others stricken. Jamie's heart raced. The factory was more than just a building, it was the lifeblood of Maplewood. It meant jobs. It meant families. And now, it meant a collective panic that rippled through the community. Soft whimpers began to emerge from the back of the church as shocked townsfolk processed the implications. The elderly woman who had smiled at Jamie seconds before now gripped the pew tightly, her knuckles white. He felt the shift in energy, the optimism he had built unraveling in the face of reality. Listen, we need to help them, Jamie said, his voice trembling but determined to break through the despair. We can't let fear tear us apart. We can pull together, just like Cleopatra brought people together. This is our moment to rise together. From the back, Tim scoffed loudly, a mix of disbelief and frustration coloring his words. Help them? How? With what? We don't even have resources for our own families. The words lashed at Jamie, but he couldn't let the negativity settle. Exactly. That's why we need each other more than ever. If we stand together now, but standing together doesn't mend broken bones or save lives. Tim interjected, anger flaring in his eyes. It was a flash that hurt Jamie deeply, but he clenched his fists, refusing to let it deter him. He scanned the room, searching for some glimmer of hope. Their faces were a mix of fear and confusion, yet he saw flickers of determination as well. If we don't act now, the community we've just begun to imagine will fade into nothing. We have to go find out what's happening and rally together to support those in need. We can start a collection, get supplies, help evacuate and care for the injured. We can't sit idly by while our neighbors suffer. A man in the front, one of the younger workers from the factory, stood up. Jamie's right. If we don't help each other, who will? We need to show everyone that Maplewood cares. Jamie's heart swelled at the man's courage. He wasn't alone in this fight. With each word, the crowd began to stir. People murmured amongst themselves, nodding, some raising their hands to show their support. The stranger, panting and still in shock, stumbled forward. We need volunteers. Right now. They don't know how bad it is out there. Then let us not waste another moment. Jamie shouted, rallying the crowd. Let us go protect our own. With a surge of purpose, people began to move, ushering one another towards the door. Jamie felt as if he were catching the wind beneath his wings, a rush of adrenaline buzzing through his veins. But just as they reached the door, Jamie paused, a sick flutter in his stomach. What awaited them outside? Would they face chaos and despair? Or could they somehow find strength within their broken community? Clutching Cleopatra's book tightly, he whispered a silent prayer that they would find the courage to rise. As he stepped into the uncertain night, Jamie couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Would they be able to weather this storm together, or would they falter in their moment of need? The answers lay ahead, just within the darkness. The cool night air hit Jamie like a wave as he stepped from the warmth of the church into the chaos swirling outside. The sound of sirens blared in the distance, merging with the voices of frightened townsfolk who were now moving like a herd, drawn toward the heart of the crisis. Come on. We need everyone. The man who had stood up earlier called out, his arms raised as he jogged ahead, gathering a small group around him. They stepped over debris and shattered glass strewn across the pavement in a grim reflection of their shattered sense of safety. Jamie glanced back at the church, gathering his thoughts as the darkness drew closer. Fear threatened to grip him, but he pushed it down. They needed him to be strong. They needed him to lead. He jogged to catch up, heart pounding with a mix of adrenaline and anxiety. Do you think there are people trapped inside? A voice from the crowd broke through the cacophony. It was a middle-aged woman with worry etched across her face. I don't know, Jamie replied, his mind racing. We have to find out. They reached the factory grounds, the once bustling center of Maplewood, now dark and steaming in the aftermath of the explosion. Shadows danced against the ruins, the fire flickering like a heartbeat in the night. A group of first responders were already on the scene, their flashlights bounced off the wreckage as they directed the entrapped townsfolk to safety, but for some, the path ahead was unclear. As the crowd dispersed to help where they could, Jamie froze. His stomach clenched at the sight of familiar faces, coworkers, friends, and neighbors. Some were crying. Others were helping stretch out blankets for the injured, shaking hands, and offering water. Jamie! Over here! Called the younger worker, waving him over. He hurried to the group. They were forming an impromptu triage area, treating cuts and sprains among the frightened and dazed survivors. We can set up a supply table over there, Jamie said, gesturing to a clear space a few yards away. Great idea. The young worker replied, his energy contagious. I can grab some medical supplies from my dad's station. He was a paramedic. As others surged forward, Jamie felt a flicker of hope ignite. This was the driving force of Maplewood: their will to support one another, to refuse to crumble under pressure. He began to organize the growing group into different tasks, one section for the injured, another for donations. It felt good to be moving, to be making a difference, but the rising dread crept back in when a figure stumbled from the shadows, covered in soot and blood. It was a woman from the factory, her eyes wide with panic, her voice breaking. "Help! My brother is still inside. Didn't he make it out?" Jamie's heart sank. He had not prepared for this. "Okay, we'll get him. Where was he last seen?" I think he was on the second floor," she sobbed, pointing toward the skeleton of the building behind her. The murmurs around Jamie grew louder, uncertainty and fear echoing among the crowd. "It's too dangerous," someone whispered. "We shouldn't go back in there." He took a step forward, his resolve burning bright. "No. We can't abandon anyone here. We need to go. Who's with me?" Silence weighed heavy for a moment as the crowd hesitated, and then a hand shot up from behind him. "I'll go with you." It was the young worker, his face set with determination. Others began to join. "So will I, me too." Jamie felt like he was standing on the edge of a cliff, the chasm of fear below ready to swallow him whole. But there was no turning back now. Together, they could face the gusts of fear and reach into the abyss to save whoever they could. "Let us do it," he shouted, bolstered by the fierce collective spirit surrounding him. As they made their way toward the gaping maw of the factory, Jamie couldn't shake the thought that every step forward was a step deeper into the unknown. Was there still time to save a life, or would they face the ultimate cost of their bravery? And in the face of true darkness, who would emerge stronger? They moved as one, a determined collective that surged into the mouth of the factory. The air was thick and acrid, a bitter reminder of the flames that had torn through the heart of their community. Each step deeper into the wreckage felt like a battle against the memories of laughter and camaraderie that had once echoed through these halls. "Stick close," Jamie called out, his voice steady, though his heart hammered a chaotic rhythm. Up ahead, the younger worker led the way, his flashlight slicing through the dense smoke like a knife. Jamie could hear the soft whimpers of the woman behind him, her worry threading through the air like an invisible tether. They reached what was left of the assembly line. Steel beams jutted out at odd angles, casting long shadows against the flickering light. The sound of shifting debris made Jamie's pulse quicken. "Stay alert," he said, fear creeping in without invitation. "Over here." The young worker shouted, racing toward a pile of collapsed panels. "I think I see something." Jamie's breath caught as he sprinted to catch up. He could almost feel the heat of desperation radiating from the woman behind him. "Can you hear me?" Jamie shouted, bracing himself against the wreckage. "If you can hear my voice, answer me." Silence hung in the air, thick and suffocating, as they all held their breath, hoping for a response. The minutes felt like hours, every second stretching until it seemed like the very fabric of time was fraying at the edges. Then he heard it, faint but unmistakable, a voice calling back, cracked and weak. "Help please, I'm trapped." A wave of relief washed over Jamie, but it was quickly laced with urgency. "Hold on. We're coming. Just stay with us." As they began to dig away at the debris, Jamie felt the weight of the darkness closing in, wrapping around him. The cheers of the crowd outside began to fade, replaced by the stifling atmosphere within. Sweat dripped down his brow, fueled by adrenaline and fear, but the thought of giving up was not an option. They had to keep going. They were all together in this fight. With each piece of rubble he tossed aside, Jamie found a rhythm, shouting encouragement to the trapped voice. The young worker joined in, their mutual determination sparking a flicker of hope. But then it happened. The ground creaked ominously beneath them. A sudden gust of wind blew smoke their way, reducing visibility to near zero. The factory groaned, a mournful sound that echoed through the wrecked halls. "We have to hurry," Jamie yelled, panic creeping into his chest. "It's going to cave in." Just when Jamie thought the weight of despair would crush them, a light flickered above them. A beam from the young worker's flashlight suddenly caught on something shiny amid the debris. "There!" he exclaimed, pointing. In that instant, they knew they weren't just rescuing a victim, they were fighting for a life. They worked even faster, adrenaline surging through them like fire. "Can you reach it?" Jamie asked, his own heart racing, not just from fear but from an unbreakable bond of community, of shared purpose. Would they fall short after everything? Almost. The man's voice grew stronger, pushing through the pain. "Please hurry." Each movement pulled them deeper into the dark heart of the factory. But Jamie couldn't shake the feeling of peril. The very floor beneath them seemed to protest their presence. "Just a little more." Jamie shouted, determined and scared all at once. And then, the earth shifted again. A loud creak echoed, followed by a crack as a section of the ceiling began to collapse. "Run!" Jamie yelled, instinctively grabbing the younger worker's shoulder. They had to make their choice now: stay and risk it all, or save themselves. But their hearts, entwined with the cries of the trapped, urged them to stay. Could they really reach him in time? Would they pay the cost of their bravery? The threads of fate tangled tighter, and in that moment of uncertainty, Jamie's mind raced with a single thought: what if this was where they would find their true strength, or lose everything? The ground shook ominously, forcing Jamie's heart to race even faster. He could feel the tension in the air, thick with the smoke that stung his eyes, curling around them like a living thing eager to pull them into darkness. "We can't," but the words faded as he felt the young worker resist him, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and determination. "We need to help him." The young worker's voice hardened, his resolve flaring brighter in the face of uncertainty. Jamie nodded, knowing the weight of that decision would bear down on them like the very beams threatening to crush them. "Stay low," Jamie called, taking a deep breath and diving back toward the pile. He could hear the faint cries of the trapped man, mixing with the groaning structure around them. Each cry felt like an anchor, pulling him deeper into a void of desperation. "Come on!" he shouted, his hands racing across the jagged debris, searching for anything that could help. The other workers joined him, their voices rising in a chorus of encouragement, transforming fear into fuel. Suddenly, a cracking sound echoed above them, a stark reminder of their perilous position. Jamie's stomach twisted at the noise, the mix of hope and dread battling for dominance. "Get ready to move," he barked. They needed to be cohesive, a unit working as one. As the pile shifted once more, Jamie spotted a glint of metal. It was an arm, covered in grime and dust, thrashing helplessly. "I see you," Jamie shouted, his voice hoarse with emotion. "We're right here. Hold on." The arm's thrashing stopped briefly, as if the trapped man was finding a flicker of hope in Jamie's words. Jamie's heart surged, he stretched his arm, straining to reach the hand poking from the rubble. "Just a little closer." The young worker, now beside him, shoved aside a heap of twisted metal with everything he had. "Careful. It could fall." Jamie yelled, fear creeping back in, but they pressed on. Every moment spent was another thud against their resolve. But the noise grew louder, a massive crack and then the unsettling creak of the structure above them. "We can't take much more of this," the young worker gasped, his voice a mixture of urgency and sheer will. "Got it," Jamie shouted as he finally grasped the hand, feeling the warmth through the cold debris. "Hold on tight." Ropes of fear exploded into a palpable sense of triumph as he yanked. The man's grip tightened around Jamie's wrist, pulling him closer, though the sound of shifting metal rang louder. The factory seemed to be telling them time was up, yet they refused to let that dictate their fate. Tremors surged through the floor, knocking debris and chaos around them. "We need to pull now," Jamie urged. The terrified eyes of the trapped man met Jamie's, and in that moment of shared dread, Jamie found clarity. "On 3. He shouted, even as the sound of crumbling concrete echoed ominously around them. 1, 2, 3. With everything they had left, they heaved, and the man broke free with a gasp that mingled with the dust. But their triumph was short-lived. As they pulled him clear, the ceiling above began to collapse entirely, raining debris down around them. "Run!" Jamie yelled, adrenaline coursing through him as they took off, not looking back as the world behind them fell apart. They stumbled towards the light, each step fueled by the primal instinct to survive. As they burst into the open air, Jamie took in the crowd that had gathered outside, faces filled with anticipation and worry, but in the distance, the rumble of the factory was far from over. Just as they thought they were safe, a loud crack echoed, and a massive beam broke free from the ruins. "Look out!" Someone screamed. In a heartbeat, time felt suspended. Would they escape the shadows of loss, or would they face the fierce grip of fate once again? Jamie's heart raced as he turned to see if everyone was safe, but the world around him blurred into chaos. What awaited them next was unknown. The beam swayed like a pendulum poised to strike. Jamie felt the air thicken, urgency filling the open space. He turned just in time to see the workers scrambling, their faces mirrors of fear and determination. "Get back! Now!" Jamie bellowed, his voice breaking through the haze of chaos. They dashed forward, urgency compelling everyone to flee from the impending doom. Jamie's mind raced. Was everyone accounted for? Of course, they had saved the man. But there had to be others still trapped, terrified, waiting for a rescue that might never come. Panic flickered in his chest, but he quickly shoved it down. They had to keep moving. "Jamie!" The young worker shouted from the crowd, grabbing his arm. "What do we do now?" Jamie looked around. The factory was still groaning, an ominous tone that warned of its instability. The crowd churned, people shifting, jostling each other as they stumbled backwards. Fear was palpable, hanging in the air along with acrid smoke. He squinted, searching for the familiar face of their foreman, Mr. McAdams. If anyone could handle this mess, it was him. "Where's Mr. McAdams?" Jamie asked, suddenly feeling the enormity of their situation. They needed leadership. They needed order. The crowd was growing restless, nerves bunching into an overwhelming wave of uncertainty. "I haven't seen him," the young worker replied, his voice climbing with worry. Just then, a deep voice cut through the rising tide of panic. "Everyone, listen up." Mr. McAdams emerged from the haze, soot on his face, but unmistakably intact. Relief washed over Jamie. "We're organizing a search party. People may still be trapped inside. We need to stand together." Jamie felt a spark of hope ignite. "We can't just leave people there," he declared, stepping forward, catching the foreman's eye. "I want to go back in. We can't abandon them." "Jamie, it's dangerous," McAdams countered, but Jamie's resolve was unwavering. "Look, I know that. But we can't turn our backs now. Not after what we've been through." His heart hammered as the weight of countless lives settled on his shoulders. "Okay," McAdams relented, nodding slowly. "All right. Who's with Jamie?" A few brave souls stepped forward, eyes steeled with shared purpose. The young worker joined them, determination etched on his face. Jamie felt a rush of gratitude. They were all forged from the same fire that threatened to engulf them. They moved back toward the ruins, a ragged but resolute line wading through uncertainty. The air was thick with smoke and a sense of urgency, the remnants of the factory looming like a grave reminder of what was at stake. As they approached the entrance, another violent tremor quaked beneath their feet, sending dust spiraling around them. "Keep your heads down," McAdams barked, pushing through the darkness with an authority Jamie felt reassuring. As they slipped into the shadows of the ruined building, Jamie felt the weight of his decision. The cries for help lingered in the air, an echo of lives hanging in the balance. Each step felt like a promise to those trapped inside, but as they navigated the debris, the world shifted again, and every sound amplified, setting Jamie's nerves on edge. With each crumbling sound, a dreadful question nagged at his mind: were they coming to help or to find more darkness? Suddenly, a low moan pierced through the chaos. Jamie froze. Did someone hear it too? Is someone there? He called out, his voice trembling as fear gripped at his throat. In that moment, he realized this wasn't just about rescue, it was about what lay hidden in the shadows as they ventured deeper into the wreckage, every step pulling them further away from safety and closer to potential tragedy. What awaited them in that darkness? Jamie held his breath, straining to hear any response in the engulfing darkness. Silence enveloped him like a thick fog. The group stayed tense, eyes darting around, searching for the source of that haunting sound. Hello? Can anyone hear me? He called again, his voice echoing back at him, mocking his desperation amidst the decay and despair. The young worker, who had grabbed his arm earlier, stepped closer to Jamie. What if it's a trap? He whispered, fear lacing his words. Jamie felt the knot in his stomach tighten. They were risking everything, driven by the flickering hope that someone still lived behind the rubble. Maybe it's a survivor, McAdams said, barely above a whisper. Keep moving forward, listen carefully. They pressed deeper into the building, the air thickening with dust and uncertainty. Each footstep felt heavier, as if the wreckage was trying to swallow them whole. Jamie tried to focus on anything but the fear clawing at his insides. He thought about the lives they might save, the faces of friends and families, all hanging on to hope for loved ones lost in the chaos. Over here. A faint cry cut through the suffocating silence. Did you hear that? Jamie's heart raced as they turned toward the sound. We have to go there. Another tremor rumbled below them, and debris shifted ominously above. We need to be careful. McAdams urged, but Jamie couldn't slow down now. Determination surged through him. If there was even one person alive, they needed help. They ducked around fallen beams and broken machinery, the dim light barely illuminating the path. The noise grew louder, a symphony of muted cries and whispers emanating from further inside. For a fleeting moment, Jamie felt an adrenaline rush, a fierce fire igniting within. Keep your eyes open. He shouted, pushing aside a large piece of metal. The weight of the factory felt suffocating, but hope began to pierce through the shroud of fear. As they moved deeper, they entered a small room, dimly lit by a crack in the wall. There, trapped beneath the wreckage, lay a man, his leg pinned beneath an iron beam. The flicker of life in his eyes turned Jamie's fear to urgency. He could see the man's expression, a mix of pain and relief at the sight of them. Help, the man gasped, his breath ragged. We're here. Hang on. Jamie cried, glancing back at McAdams, who quickly organized the group. They formed a defensive line. They had to be quick. Time was running out. As they lifted the beam, Jamie could feel the weight of the world pressing down. Sweat dripped from his brow as he strained against the metal. 1, 2, 3. They all pushed together, and the beam budged slightly, enough for the man to writhe free. Just as he scrambled out, another violent quake surged through the factory. The walls shook, dust fell, and Jamie stumbled back, losing his footing. Everything felt like it was caving in. Run! Get out! McAdams shouted, but Jamie couldn't move. He turned back just in time to see the man fall, a look of despair crossing his face as the beams began to collapse anew. In that moment, a terrible truth dawned on Jamie. They weren't just rescuing a victim, they were marching headlong into a burial ground. The stakes rose, the urgency transformed. They needed to escape, but how could he leave someone behind? As chaos erupted again, Jamie's heart raced between choices. Save himself and the one survivor they'd rescued, or risk it all for rescue that may already slip from their grasp. Every second counted, and as he faced the crumbling facade of their hope, Jamie wondered, would he make the right choice, or would it all come crashing down around them? And then, from the darkness, came another cry, this one louder and more insistent. Jamie's heart sank. What if there were more? What if they couldn't just leave? The ground shook violently, sending a tremor of panic through Jamie's limbs. As if the building itself was alive and angry, it roared around them, objects crashing down as they echoed with a deafening thud. Jamie knew they were running out of time. "Move!" McAdams yelled, shoving past Jamie to grab the man's arm, pulling him toward the exit. The man winced, pain flashing across his features, but he didn't resist. Fear was a powerful motivator. "Is there anyone else?" Jamie shouted, but the haunting cries seemed to linger, distant and muffled, feeding his desperation. Could there be another soul trapped? "What are you doing?" The young worker snapped, tugging at Jamie's sleeve. "We have to go." "No. There might be more people here." Jamie looked back at the darkness from which the cries emanated. His heart thudded in his chest, the sound almost drowning out the collapse around them. "Stop it!" McAdams interjected, urgency lacing his voice. "We can't risk being caught in here. We save who we can, and we get out." "But what if Jamie?" McAdams shouted, his voice sharp as a blade. Panic surged through Jamie, but as he glanced back toward the source of the cries, the echoes twisted into a mix of hope and despair. "You have to trust me," McAdams insisted, and there was a weight behind those words. The man they rescued groaned in pain, his face distorted with discomfort, brushing weakly against Jamie's arm. "Please, you have to go." That broke something inside Jamie. The pressure of choice felt unbearable. How could they leave, knowing that someone else was still trapped? Yet, how could they risk their lives for a cry that may lead to nothing? "I can help," Jamie shouted, heart racing. "I can find them." In a heartbeat, another quake rattled the building, more debris rained down, forcing Jamie and the others closer to the exit. McAdams' grip tightened around him, eyes pleading. "We can't help everyone, Jamie. We have to save ourselves." The man stared into Jamie's eyes, fear and sadness swirling in the unspoken. It was a choice laden with heavy consequences. For a brief moment, everything stopped. Jamie could feel the weight of their lives suspended in the air. He could rush forward into the dark, chasing the ghosts of cries he hadn't even seen. Or he could pull back, shield the wounded man and protect them all. "Jamie!" McAdams pulled him closer to the exit, the desperation in his voice crackling like electricity. "Please!" The urgency seeped through him, but it was a moment mingled with indecision. Time slipped through his fingers like sand. "Go!" The young worker yelled, tugging Jamie firmly toward the exit. But then, an unmistakable scream ripped through the darkness. A scream so full of raw, palpable fear that it knotted Jamie's stomach. It was a woman's voice, rising up from the abyss. His heart raced, tethered to that sound. "Did you hear that? There is someone else." Without thinking, he surged forward, pushing past the others. It wasn't just a cry. It was hope, and it beckoned to him like a lighthouse in a storm. "Jamie, wait!" McAdams barked, but Jamie could feel every fiber of his being propelled forward, drawn by something he couldn't fully understand. As he plunged into the shadows, darkness closed around him, and for a split second, he felt utterly alone. Then, from the depths, came another call, a plea that echoed, desperate and hopeful. It was the moment he'd been waiting for, but it might just lead him into the very jaws of disaster. "Please help me." That voice pierced through the chaos, leaving Jamie breathless with purpose, urging him onward. But the very ground beneath him threatened to give way, and he wondered, could he save her too, or would he lose everything trying? As the walls trembled again, Jamie realized the depth of his next decision would echo far beyond these crumbling walls. The air was thick, almost suffocating, as Jamie plunged deeper into the darkness. Each step felt perilous, vibrating with the energy of fear and desperation. He could hear the echo of the woman's cries bouncing off the walls, guiding him, her voice both a beacon and a reminder of their perilous mission. "Where are you?" Jamie called, trying to project courage. "I'm coming. Please answer me." The shadows swallowed his words, and for a moment, all that surrounded him was silence. Then another tremor shook the ground. He staggered, feeling the factory convulse around him. Time wasn't on his side. As he pressed on, memories of laughter and camaraderie from the factory danced in his mind, faces of coworkers, friends who had stood beside him through thick and thin. The thought of them propelled him forward, every heartbeat reminding him of why he had to fight through this darkness, for them, for Maplewood, and now, for this stranger. Help! The voice rang out again, heart-wrenchingly close. Jamie pushed aside a section of debris and ventured further into the dimness. Grit and dust swirled around him, settling in his lungs, but he pressed on, drawn by the scream that stirred a primal instinct within him. Suddenly, he spotted a glimmer of light ahead, a crack sealing hope in the shadows. Racing toward it, Jamie caught a flicker of movement. "I see you!" he shouted, launching himself toward the woman crouched beneath slabs of fallen steel. She was trapped, her leg pinned down and her expression twisted in anguish. "Please! Help me!" Her eyes widened, shimmering with tears. "I've got you!" Jamie gasped, kneeling beside her. He dug his fingers into the rubble, determined to pull her free, though the weight seemed insurmountable. Sweat dripped from his brow, heart pounding like a drum. "Hang on, just hold on." The young worker's voice broke through the darkness, echoing back to him. "Jamie! Where are you?" "Here. I found her. Help!" He yelled back, urgency fueling every ounce of his being. They could save her. He believed that with everything he had. The young worker appeared at his side, eyes wide with a mix of fear and adrenaline. "What do we need to lift?" "Everything!" Jamie shouted, frantically surveying the debris. Together, they began to clear the collapsing structure, shocked at the weight, but driven by the fragility of life. They dug deeper and deeper, adrenaline surging, the minutes ticking by like hours. "We can't stop now," he urged. Then it happened. The building roared, a terrible decay echoing through the air. Jamie looked up, heart sinking. "We need to go. We can't risk it." "But we're almost there," the young worker shouted back, his expression reflecting Jamie's own desperate resolve. There had to be a way. Just then, Jamie heard the woman whimper. "No. Don't leave me." Her face twisted in terror, she thrashed against the rubble as if sensing the danger looming. "Stay with me." Jamie squeezed her hand, feeling the urgency of the moment weigh on him like 1,000 pounds. "We're going to get you out. Just a little longer." The ground trembled violently again, the structure groaning under pressure. Jamie's resolve flared. This wasn't just him anymore, this was for everyone who had ever fought to stay standing amidst the chaos. "Please," he implored, eyes hardening with determination. "Keep calm. We'll be out in no time." He pulled, straining against the oppressive weight. "On 3. Shouted the young worker, rallying the crowd behind them, now at the threshold, ready to help. 1, 2, 3. With a synchronized effort, they heaved, and with a deafening crack, the steel beam shifted. Suddenly, a loud crack resounded as debris above them collapsed yet again. Jamie's heart raced, instinct taking over as he shielded the woman, feeling the cold shards rain down. "Run!" he barked, the urgency screaming through his veins. "Get back!" He yanked the woman up, adrenaline coursing through him like wildfire as he urged her forward. They broke free from the darkness, tumbling into the fresh air outside, the stars twinkling as if celebrating their escape. As they stepped into the swirling chaos, Jamie turned back, roaring toward the darkness. "Is anyone else still in there?" The answer was silence, heavy and despairing. But that stillness quickly morphed into the spirited momentum of his community, who rallied after them, arms entwined through the certainty that they would endure. The chaos erupted around them, faces lighting in the glow of flames as they returned to help or comfort. Their unity was palpable, a testament to their forged bonds. And in that moment, Jamie knew that the heart of Maplewood would never cower. No factory or storm could unravel their will. "Tonight we rise," he shouted, his voice blending into the chorus of hope igniting around them. The night glowed brighter, people lifting each other up, no one turning away from the pain or the turmoil that lay ahead. As they held on to one another, Jamie felt the tremors of fear fade, replaced by a fierce determination to face the future. This was just the beginning. Together, they could become a force unstoppable. Today, we support each other, he declared, as hands clasped, and warmth began to blanket the trembling community. Jamie's heart mirrored the strength around him, no longer burdened by disappointment, but lit by purpose, driven by a united spirit that shimmered against the backdrop of uncertainty. This wasn't just about overcoming the darkness, it was about experiencing the light within their bruised hearts. And his belief in this truth soared as he realized, Maplewood was not merely a town. It was a family. Together, they would rewrite their story. And it started now, one courageous step at a time. If you felt the power of this transformation and want to witness more, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive stories that inspire hope and resilience. Leave a like now to not only feed the algorithm but to let us know you care about these journeys. Comment below and share your reactions and feelings about the ending. Your words can spark more conversations. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation. True fans understand the importance of supporting this movement.